We're all good. April 15th, 2024, Advisory Commission on Coastal Waters. So, welcome everybody. Most importantly, we have a new commissioner. Martin Masterson is with us here, and very excited to have him come aboard. And you get to meet everybody as we go along. We've met 4 or so of us already, so we'll give you a chance of that. But we'd love to hear a little bit about you and what you're doing as a goal up in Bridgeport.
Sure.
If you'd like to give us that, that'd be great.
Yeah, my name is Martin Masterson. I'm happy to be a part of the commission. It's really exciting for me. I grew up in New Jersey on the water and moved up here with my wife about 5 years ago. We've been in town. I got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, so in the thick of it, doing the dairying thing with the kids. So, but yeah, I am currently serving as project manager with McAllister Towing. It's a tugboat operation based up and down the East Coast, Portland, Puerto Rico. We dock ships, tow barges, etc., etc. We also own and operate the Bridgeport Port Jet Ferry. As part of that ferry operation, years ago, the company purchased a large 18-acre facility on the east side of the harbor with the intent to move the ferry terminal operation from where it is right now near the amphitheater across to that larger new location. That property was heavily contaminated, widespread polluted film. So it's been a multi-year effort, a multi-million-dollar effort to clean up that property, which I'm proud to say has come to a close as of last year. I'm currently going through all the paperwork and all the processes to close that all up officially. But now we're moving on to developing the terminal, putting the docks in, and coming up with a plan forward. Half the space is leased to Avangrid for operations and maintenance hub for the offshore wind farm, and the other half will become a ferry terminal, 9-acre parcel. That comes with a whole bag of tricks and treats. Most notably now is the dock arrangement.
I can't hardly hear you and I'm next to you.
All right, roll it down.
Fair enough. And long story short on that, we originally planned to put the boats across the face of the berth. It would eat up the potential for maritime activity on the other berth that we own. It would stick further out past the marina and the bow thruster wash would wash everybody's boats out of the water. We've gone through 3 designers at this point. We're working with Adv Comm, which is a multinational engineering firm that builds airports and things. And they've come up with a new design of that same old design, moved enough pilings around that the state said we need a new permit. I hated the idea, if I'm being frank, of the original design, so I suggested why don't we angle it out into the harbor, it would cut down on turnaround time and improve operational efficiency, put the boats into the wind and the seas, and we started to run with that, and fortunately or unfortunately, that requires an act of Congress to deauthorize a portion of the harbor as part of federal waterway. So we went to DC and talked with Hines and Murphy and Blumenthal and got all their support. And then they look to the Army Corps, and the Army Corps looks to the Coast Guard, and the Coast Guard looks to all the stakeholders in the harbor. So we had to have a navigational risk assessment, and that occurred today. It went very well. So we had everybody in the room, from the Corps, Coast Guard, the Port Authority of Connecticut, and oil operators, the barge operators, everybody sat in the room in the restaurant that is now right adjacent to this other parcel. You may or may not have gone there. I would be surprised if you've been there, Dolphins Cove. But we purchased that old kind of rundown restaurant, and we're bringing that back to life and figured what better place to host it than the place you can stand on the back deck and look at the area we're looking to deauthorize from the feds. So
That's a rundown.
Proud to say that one. Well, and yeah.
So I think if you're all like me, I'm fascinated by what he's doing, and he has offered to have a tour for us sometime.
Yeah.
Where we could pick up more of this information and actually see what's going on. I mean, first in line. I love that kind of stuff, so.
Yeah.
It's fantastic you offer that up for us, that'd be great.
Yeah, happy to do so, especially now that that meeting is behind me.
That's good.
But yeah, whenever anybody is free to come up, I'm happy to walk you around, show you the property. It's now 20 acres and a pretty vital piece of the waterfront there in a harbor that could use some rebirth, if I'm being frank. But
I think you bring some experience to us, in a different way, right?
I kind of stepped into this, to be honest with you, and I'm learning a lot as I'm going, but there's a lot to learn, but it's fun interfacing with Connecticut DEP and now the state and the feds, so it's interesting, but it's a good time. So
You have
I'm
a
happy.
strange sense of fun.
I'll add one more piece of fun. He's willing to take on the shellfish role with some guidance from, I'll help him, and mainly from the guidance who has done it before us. So,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you for being the next shellfish expert here. So, well, I think we'll all learn together, and hopefully David can help us get through it initially, and that'd be great. You're not smiling over there. Okay, all right, just
All
checking. Okay, all good. So thank you for that too. That's great.
Happy to be here, thank you.
Let's see, going on to our agenda. First thing is the update on the permitting. You've all probably saw that they've already set out to the Corps of Engineers and DEEP, our consultants, their request for sediment location. So then now they wait in line and we see what comes back from, I guess it's the Corps really, you'd probably be the expert on this whole thing too. We'll then determine that's the right spot or not right spot. So it's initiated.
Have they done the sampling already?
No.
So how do they know where they can put it?
They just take their best shot. One of them, if you noticed on there, was where they did it many years ago, and then they probably know that in a certain length they have to have a certain number of samples, and I think they just go with what their past is, and then they just throw it into the hopper. And they Corps, and I guess in most cases, don't accept it, and they come back and pick another spot or two. Maybe you have some of that too, in how it worked out.
How they do it.
Yeah.
That's
So.
what experts for.
Yeah, that's what we pay them to do that. So we're moving along. It's the first stop, and then we'll see what happens, how long it takes for them to get back to us on that. Let's see, the other piece on Great Island is, I guess, and you probably know more on that as well, and some of it was in the news, where they did not get any bids or enough adequate bids for the road widening.
No bids.
No bids, yeah, no bids. So that kind of sets everything back a little bit.
How is that
What-
possible?
I don't know. I assume, we have a very experienced Department of Public Works. They've done lots of bidding, and I don't know what happened here. Maybe you have any insight on why
I
they
think
got
there's some
that?
speculation that it might have been due to the timing we were looking for. The phones just couldn't, we really wanted the work to start
Okay.
like in the next few weeks, very, very quickly. to
And
be
they
ready
were
for the
plenty
summer.
busy and said, I can't make it.
Can't, bid for, that's why I said I can't do it in that time frame. That was one speculation.
Okay.
So, do you know, we're going back out to a wider group, or is this the?
Well, you don't really go out to a group that's posted generally,
Posted.
and there's websites that all the contractors go into. I mean, Ed may make some phone calls.
Yeah,
They were gonna really, I think he was gonna kind of check around, look at, it could be broken apart different ways or something. Sort of
So-
investigate the best way to proceed.
okay, so then, is the summer basically eclipsed for?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Which when we talk about later, as we get into trying to figure out different pieces, puts more pressure on boaters trying to get in there. Right? If they can't get in by cars, then they're going to try to get in by boats. So we'll have to, we can offer some ideas, and then the main advisory group in Great Island will have to face that too.
Well, right now, nobody's allowed on the dock, so.
Right. Okay.
Silly question, but
yeah.
we had some family in town, and we went and walked the property this weekend again, and I was sort of telling them about the history of the estate and everything, and they were asking why the road needed to be widened and why everything has to be widened. Can you just make it like a one-way? Because it's access for trucks,
The
right?
only part that's being widened now is from the entrance and stone
Yeah.
gates to the circle. And then it would be a one-way loop.
Oh, okay,
For now,
okay.
for now.
All right, I didn't know that, so that clarifies, because I
Right.
thought it was everything. I was like, I don't know.
No,
I'm sure
it was
there's an
just
answer,
up-
but I don't know
It was
it.
just up the circle because that is the only way in and out.
In and out.
But then you can
But you
take,
need like fire trucks and things like
Right.
that to be all, to fit in there with other cars.
Mhm.
Correct.
So that's why it needs to be wide.
Yeah. That's a great
So-
answer.
so that's not necessarily forever.
Forever, but the
initial-
short term was double lane.
Double lane into
to
a
the
circle,
circle.
make it one way around,
Got it.
locate
Right.
different
That
pieces
makes-
of pocket parking.
That makes more sense.
The next piece on here, we pretty much talked about it. It's the sampling analysis plan. Obviously,
Oh, before you just forget.
oh, did I miss something here?
You and that's the approvals, right?
I'm sorry?
That's the approval section. Let me just talk.
Yeah, go for it.
Because part of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
chair's report. I just wanted to
We didn't
hand
rehearse this, so.
this
We're waiting.
out to everyone. Just there's a lot of sea grant, resilience, coastal resilience seminars and funding and information going on in the spring, and if people want to, participate and follow up on stuff. Obviously, the town's got a little bit of a budget crunch. We could find a way to bring some funds in, pay for some stuff, maybe that would be a gold star for us, so, just a thought. And then,
Okay.
definitely.
So the sampling analysis we just talked about, really, but the background was we had to get it approved by the RTM in total. And so first, the Park and Rec was very nice to be the one that actually looked at it first, on the RTM side. And they gave us what we needed there, and then they took it to the RTM in full, and we got that $26,000 approved, so that's moving ahead on that piece, which we already talked about. I don't know, so I wanted to go through a lot of the Great Island stuff that we've been
Well,
talking
before we-
about, but maybe I don't want to do that right now.
Yeah, why don't we, so, let's just.
That's going to be a little more time.
So everybody got this in their email, I'm sure everybody read it from front to back, and did anyone have any questions or comments? No, great, that's good. So why don't we vote, we have a motion to approve this? Offer a motion, okay, in a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so, we approve this, yes? Anyone object?
It did go through the whole thing.
Or do you want to discuss? You can discuss.
Not really,
Okay.
but it's actually very logical.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense, right?
It's very logical. A leads to B leads to C leads to D. So it's good for us all to have a copy, all keep close. And there's a lot that's going to take place between now and 2 years from now.
And then the difference will be that those depths will change, obviously, in most cases. And so that's all a projection. You got to go forward with it. So when you finally get to a point and it's gotten worse, then you just have to, again, something you're probably expert on, you have to now qualify how much of that can you afford to take out. And hopefully, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I think it's good to, let's just see what they come up with. Mainly, what's the toxicity, or now hopefully non-toxicity
Right.
of the site, which we will find out when they finally do that.
They haven't sampled yet.
No,
So we don't know.
this is very day one. We got-
The
They
last time
haven't
they did it, I think,
sampled
was 1999.
recently. They sampled like 20 plus years ago
Right.
in connection with the earlier dredging project.
Yeah, and to
I
get
thought
you,
there was sampling that was done more recently.
yeah, to catch,
Related to the ramp,
right.
Yes,
and that was
there was contamination.
determined to be
Yes.
much more highly contaminated than anticipated.
Yeah, so
It
it
was
depends.
just over the level
you're
where
talking
we
about.
could,
The kind
dump it.
of side waters tend to be more contaminated, the sediment, but the main channel has historically not been actually very, which is where the bulk of the spoils.
Because where the ramp is like a trap. Just the geography of it is it concentrates everything there, getting way out of the channel.
And this plan is mostly for the
Channel.
harbor out
The channel, yeah.
south of the boat club, so to say.
This plan includes going around the boat clubs, may include
it's
going
passable.
over near Roten, but in
Yeah.
terms of volumes, The bulk of it is in the main channel.
Yeah, if you see on the map, it's the harbor.
Okay.
Here, this is Pear Tree Point Beach, so it starts here, goes out here, and then this is into Pratt Cove,
Got it.
small.
Okay.
And just to catch you up to speed, there had been a study, there currently is a study of a section right from the boat ramp around the boat club, which Park and Rec was shepherding, and that's where we got the kicker that there's some heavy pesticides in there, and so it's kind of on.
Herbicides.
Definitely herbicides, I'm sorry. So it's on hold until, we're hoping the channel, which was done last time, did not have any of that it doesn't have the same situation where then everything comes to a, now what do we do? One step at a time.
The other thing that led to the application, please correct me if I'm wrong too, is that the town project, right, is in the permitting and approval process, right, Lori?
It's approved.
It's
It's approved, I'm sorry. But it could
Everything
take a
but the
while to
money.
get that done, okay? And the permitting process can take several years to become approved. So if they're coming to dredge the boat club area and the boat ramp, maybe it makes sense at the same time to have them do the channel and all that. And the harbor project could take several years. So, and it has a 5-year window.
Right, so
Right,
it's like
of
2
use.
years to get permitted and then a 5-year window.
So the thought was it's a 7-year horizon to sort of say like, we're gonna need this in 7 years, so we should start the process now.
How does the boat club fit into this, if at all? Right, so
I was just using it as a reference point.
I don't mean in terms of money. I mean, you've got all these finger docks and area in the middle around where you're dredging that is presumably collecting a ton of silt and filling in slowly over time. And I would think that there needs to be some dredging there eventually, unless people,
The boat club footprint itself for the moorings, not moorings, slips, is actually fine.
okay?
It's just the perimeter of the dredge that goes from the ramp to the north of the docks and around. That wall has started to slough off and is filling and has now created a shallower area. And you've got 3 docks in questions A, B, and C. The area at the end of B and end of C have filled in, and at low tide, many boats have to raise their engines in order to get around. The actual footprint for the actual slips is fine at this point. It really hasn't filled in very much as there was, I know I've talked about this before, but because of the efforts that the Friends of Gorham's Pond did many, many years ago, it used to be habitually, every 10 years, the Darien Boat Club would have to dredge its footprint. It's been 24 years now, and it still doesn't need it.
Okay,
Yeah.
shocking to me, but.
Yeah.
So, before we go on, the most important part, we'll get to the harbor master piece. I wanted to try one more try to see if we can get a little more thinking about what we could do as a coastal commission for Great Island. Let's just be like, we've all walked it. If we focus on, we saw some of those pictures that came out. I just want to go through it and see if we can come up with any more brainstorming. They haven't asked for it, but I thought it's like one more time, go over it, pick up anything else we knew we have, and so when they've asked for it or we present it, we've done the best we can to at least issues. So,
Can I ask another dredging question before we
Yeah, go ahead.
close that? Sorry about that.
hey, go ahead.
I was speaking with someone that permit had been applied for, and they had a question, and they're a mooring holder back in the Pratt Cove area where I am too. And his question was, would a larger scale dredging of like that Pratt Cove area and in front of Wheat Beach, like a whole harbor thing ever happen, or has that happened in other harbors around here? Because his comment was like there's shallowing in the whole harbor, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of sedimentation from stormwater runoff
Yeah.
and things like that, and yeah, everything's getting shallower.
But like, is there a group of people like in that Pratt Cove, right? All those homeowners with docks,
They have, some of them have, or some or all of them have dredging rights.
Yeah.
We actually talked about this on the phone, I don't know
Yeah.
about in the mooring fields who has the right to
Like
dredge
my
in
mooring
there.
back there, right? It
Well-
has gotten shallower.
That area was dredged, incidentally, Scott gave me some of this information. Pratt Cove was dredged, I believe, back in 2014.
Dock, individual docks.
After
Well,
Sandy.
the docks and moorings were moved in order to do dredging in there.
Okay.
Darien Harbor itself was dredged in 2000, that was the last time it was done,
The channel.
the channel.
Okay. I guess my question is, are there any examples of people doing larger scale dredging? And it came up in conversation the other day, so I'm just sort of asking the question, like,
Yeah, like who takes beyond the channel, who takes the lead on dredging
unlike,
beyond the channel?
Who has
all
the
the-
right to,
Is there
too,
any
right?
history of dredging there in the past?
I don't think it's
It-
in
No maintenance
memorable
dredge.
history. I
Maintenance.
mean, obviously, the entire coastal configuration of Norotan and Darien Harbor, that's all man-made in the 20s and 30s. But more recently, in memorable history, you haven't dredged the mooring areas in large part because of the cost. I mean, even back in 2003, whenever it was done last, the volume of sediment that you've
Yeah.
got to pull, if you were to actually dredge the entirety of Darien Harbor, the volume of sediment that you would pull would be would dwarf what the channel, just dredging the channel is.
And I'm not sure you would get it permitted because of the environmental impact of something like that. You know, that there's a precedent for keeping the navigable channels
maintenance
open.
dredging, I think is the term, right? Like,
Yes, exactly.
And some
And if
some
there's no
people-
history of it,
Some people have maintenance dredging, like, ability in
As
front of their
part of
private
their-
docks and stuff,
As
right?
part of their
Yes.
like land.
But like, up Pratt Cove or where the sandbar is out in front of Pear Tree Point Beach there, like, that's shown up, like, there wouldn't be an exercise to do that, mainly cost-driven and contamination.
Well, I do think there's a regulatory issue. You probably wouldn't get approval to do it, just because that's the first time it's been done.
Yeah, okay.
But even if you could get regulatory approval, the cost, and then so then you say, well, who are the beneficiaries of it? It's like the mooring holders.
Yeah.
Some guy, if you charged him like for his circle, it would be
Huge.
expensive.
Yeah, okay.
Which is, it's a really good point because it's becoming more and more of a problem for our harbors. And I think we need to be thinking, and I added this in the Great Island list, about how to decrease the sediment ending up in the waterways. You know, and talking about like what's happening upstream and, you know, up the hill from the harbors and
Yeah.
all the construction and, you know, and how people are lining the edges of their properties. It's kind of community education.
Doesn't this sometimes occur, I feel like I heard some of this maybe when I was in a gathering of Shellfish Commission meetings over time, that naturally you've got major hurricanes that come through every 50 or 100 years and will scour out an area, you know, naturally, and that unleashes a whole lot of toxicity, which there's nothing you can do about it. But there is some cycle of nature in terms of how some of this works.
I just think there's, that probably is true, there's just so much development
Yeah.
in our area. And like, it's not just Darien, it's up New Canaan and up the river and, you know, we unfortunately sort of were stuck with the results of that. So,
Well, thanks.
it's a very good question.
It was interesting. This person was like, well, if there's an obligation to dredge a channel, is there an obligation to do more? And
There's
I-
not an obligation to.
I
cut the
never
channel,
thought it, well,
actually.
I never
It's not
thought
an
about
obligation,
it.
it's like a desire.
Well, a
Yes.
desire, okay. If there's a
Yeah.
desire to do more for the channel, is there a desire to do more for the whole harbor, right? And I hadn't thought of it like that, but I thought it was interesting to hear that from someone. And, you know, sure, cost is the major thing, and maybe regulations are, but I was just pointing it out there because I hadn't different
Yeah,
view, right?
It's not an obligation, because we John and I talked about this and we looked into it. It's, the town, we advised them that if they wanted to have a boating community, they'd have to invest in maintaining the navigable waterways.
Yeah.
And the town was willing to do that because they felt it was beneficial for the community at large, and what draws people into Darien. And so as Flip said, it's a desire rather than an obligation.
There are moorings out farther that are deeper, but
Yeah.
that's,
All right,
Shifting-
no,
shifting
that's
seaward.
fine. I told the person I would bring it up, and I thought it was interesting to hear that thought process versus, like, you can't do it. So,
wait for a
Well.
strong outgoing tide and then put
Yeah,
your
so-
boat in reverse.
You'll be,
And tilt it a little bit and just go around and around.
he's got some big tugboats if he came through
Yeah.
at night.
Yes.
Anyway,
I know a guy, he said.
Thank you.
I know a guy.
Thank you for humoring that. but-
All right. Let's see if we can humor through this one. All right. Hold on, yeah.
Is that new?
Okay. So, you've seen these before.
It's not that.
We'll just kind of go through them and see if we can pick up anything new, and we'll try it out here, okay? So let's just, okay. So, I did ask David, could you help us though, and show me where the best clamming is here, and also where that muck is that we almost died in? Because we went up there one
My
day,
Crocs are still
Mark,
in there
and we lost our shoes and everything. It was a bad day at least there. Okay.
So, if you come in with a little boat, here you can see with the color.
This is all dead low tide, by the way.
It's a little deeper, right? I'd say the core of like the best clamming area is probably right here. It's a little sandy.
There is that rock if you're going in there, that's right,
Right in the middle.
dead in the
Yeah.
center, you can see
Yeah.
it, so you'd have to pull off to the side before.
By the way, someone would put a mooring in there periodically. I think there was one there last summer, like why you even need a mooring
That
in
one,
there, I don't know.
that one's actually, the person chose not to renew it. They said
Okay.
they didn't need any more, but the tackle is still
Anyway,
there.
that's an aside. So right here is probably the best area. I think when you get kind of into this, I don't know what the word for it is. It's just a little muddier in here, and it's not to say that there aren't clams there, but it would be a really sad and pathetic way to die.
As the tide comes up and you can't move, don't go without somebody else.
And then I think it starts to get a little deeper as you go off
Yeah.
down this way, and it's probably harder. And I've never gotten past the muck, so I haven't gone that way.
How deep is it at low tide?
Oh, I mean, it's probably up to your knees, at the lowest
But
and
you
low.
can clam right up against the shore of that rocky island, and it can be like 6 inches deep.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets very shallow up near those rocks, and there are plenty of clams up there.
So we've tried to dump the bulk of the clams kind of right in here on this side, and there's that on the other side. And I guess then the question is, how do you access this from the island without beating up sensitive vegetation over time and having it maybe be a free-for-all to the water, because eventually people will start.
But it sounds like this summer, no one's gonna be able to
We've not-
access that, right?
We haven't met since the no bid situation, so,
But if people are staying on the path, right, they're not gonna
but
be.
we will have to discuss, given that will most likely be no vehicular traffic this summer, whether we're gonna stay to just the path or whether we're gonna further open it up. That discussion has just simply not happened, because we've not yet met.
The good news is that you've got all these cliffs, and there is much more of a possibility to get in right there where we want to versus coming down the cliff, so.
Legally, you're permitted,
Yeah, right.
you and I put the
That's right.
sign
There's no
in.
point there. Can't go past that.
Guerrilla tactics.
Right.
It is legal to shellfish from here, I think, all the way down to here.
But it's deep, when you get south of that little opening there,
Yeah.
no, with the first,
Oh, here.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
When you
deep
get south,
there.
it's deep.
Yeah.
You can't.
So
That
this is an opportunity for us to work with the committees there about where the path should go, what kind of signage we do, informational, and, tackle that in a different way, but it's a perfect opportunity. So I throw that one up there, and we obviously can put that as a list of things that we can add knowledge to.
Where that alcove is, sort of, right, in the green grass area, it almost looks like.
In here?
Yeah, is that sandy or is that muddy?
The whole thing's pretty muddy
Okay.
in there, but
So
I mean,
it's not
it's,
attractive
That's salt grass.
Okay.
It's not.
It's not.
it wouldn't be a beach.
not-
It's
kind of
not
place to hang
attractive
out.
for people to go hang out and sunbathe there, kind of
No.
thing.
I think you come in on the south side and you go up or down, whatever, those rocks, you can build a walkway there.
Yeah,
Now,
it's good
remember
smart.
in storms, all this can get
Yeah.
blown away.
I mean, a lot of it we want to be on site to look at. We took that one walk one day and we got a general feeling, we all bushwhacked back in there and said, yeah, this can work. We'll try to do it so it's a good path that ecologically got some, it's not
I mean,
just
is
a direct line.
Is there a way to build, just like a walking path, like along here? Is that accessible?
I would say there's things that can be looked at for that if people.
Maybe it's a little more protected.
As long as we got this picture too, the other thing besides clamming was fishing, right? So here's another opportunity of how do we handle fishing? And I think there's a lot of open-ended questions on that. Liability, but this is one of the spots, maybe at high tide, that they might.
I don't
go
understand
into.
the liability part.
I don't either.
At all.
I mean, we have it
I
all over
think
the place. And
If
I
you
assume-
go to Rhode Island in the summer, people
Okay.
walk out on
Exactly.
these jetties, like, half a mile out, and surf's crashing, and.
I don't know.
I mean, would I go
But
out
it's their
there?
end.
Probably not.
I don't know.
But I mean,
Who is saying
not
liabilities? The
that
town council saying?
No. We've not approached it,
Okay.
but it comes up in discussions about,
Yeah.
if someone falls off there. For example, over at Cove Park, the same idea, they have the rocks there, and they have signs all over the place, no fishing off the rocks. And they're fishing anyway, but they actually went ahead and put signs there, they weren't there before, so somebody.
But there are people who fish off of those rocks at Pear Tree Point Beach.
Right.
Well, I know, but if you.
Yeah,
speak
keep off the
Spanish,
rocks,
you can talk
that's
to
not
them.
me. I don't know, we'll have to just explore that, but this is one of those spots that we'll have to think
Yeah,
about how do
and
we
this
handle
is
it.
actually much better fishing here than over at Pear Tree Point Beach.
Okay. All right, so that's, all right, so this next little spot over here, I was dreaming of, got this marsh area. It's interesting to watch it at dead low tide, and you probably all know that no water at all gets along this causeway. It's totally dry except for a small piece. So one of the thoughts on this is to, for nature people, where are we here? There we go. You put something like that in there. That's might be obtrusive to some people, but it also gives access to an area like that. It also costs money. You've got to, is it going to handle another storm? But it's an idea to throw out, and that this is not quite ours. It'd be more park and rec probably, but it's an idea that that area is right now it's unusable, or you can't even get to it. Now, not everything has to be usable on this property, but this is an idea that may be thought about possibly.
I do know that the neighbors across that stream have been at least talking about winding themselves up
Yeah, I'm
to
sure. Anything they can see.
fight what anything.
Anything they can see, right?
But so if you put a
Yeah.
walkway like that, right?
Oh yeah, the fight begins. But
We have a place.
we have everything in Darien is fought, so it's one of those things you decide if you want to
We
handle it or not.
go to a place in Florida, and there's some of these that sort of wind through. There's a path, and this covers like a large gap or something like that. It keeps you inside. It's pretty pleasant to take a bike through there or walk through there.
I personally love boardwalks,
Yeah,
so
but-
that's why I threw it in there. And then you have to have the decision about where we're trying to say, do you want to develop anything on Great Island, or is this a naturalist possibility? So I
Is
just throw it.
everybody up to speed on where we are in the planning?
We're getting the master plan is
Before
taking
we
place.
just-
Yeah, so
These are ideas, but,
these are internally with us, and they may not even have.
okay.
So the thought is after this whole thing, if you see anything in here, and you're closer to the Great Island master planning people, you see anything in here that you want to throw in there, feel so, or if they want to talk to us, fine. But we understand they're paying money for professionals, and we're
Yeah,
just
as I
throwing
would
ideas.
expect, once we select the firm for the master planning, it'll be 6 months to a year.
Right.
With stakeholder engagements, and probably they would come and talk to this group and get ideas.
I think we just felt.
But then ultimately, there will be a master plan that will lay out the vision for the entire parcel.
Right. Okay. Let's go from there. Okay,
That's out
so,
to bid right now?
so this is the north side, and part of the discussion here was, should this be the kayak area instead of being closer to where all the action is, where it can be or cannot be problematic? So one of the things I don't know how muddy that is there.
I don't
too, right?
think that that's actually low tide.
Uh,
That to me is
you think that's
a mid-tide.
Really?
That entire bay at real low tide
Okay.
is dry. So one of the
Okay.
challenges of putting your kayak
You better
in
know
there
when you're coming back.
is you've got to come back at the right time.
That's right.
I believe that, I mean, John, you spend a fair amount of time over there. That entire western lobe of Scotts Cove dries out.
It's pretty dry, I mean, it's kayak navigable, maybe, but boat,
But not as you get up into that, like bay where we're talking about being the kayak
Up there
launching
in Salem
place.
Straits,
That'll
yeah.
be dry for
Yeah.
the big mud forefront.
it's pretty low in there once.
But that's
it's
one of the-
low tide.
Concepts we talk about, do we have to worry about people knowing when it's gonna be low tide or high tide? Or, I mean, that's their risk, right? So the spot about here would be, it would be out of the fray. You also could probably tuck a lot of the kayak racks and things away from the visual coming in, but you're gonna have that issue, right?
You couldn't, oh, sorry.
I-
Or-
I'm
or
actually,
do both
I'm
places.
actually thinking people are gonna be more inclined to launch from that beach area as
Okay.
opposed to this area.
Okay.
I don't know if it'll be allowed or not, but that's where people
Yeah.
gravitate to.
Right, and I think this is a concept, there is a spot here, is it the right one versus the other?
But you could also conceive of a dock. This is a pretty calm area. This
Right,
is
right.
no real wave action. Might flood, but, and so you could conceive of a dock more kind of off that eastern point there to get people out into a little deeper water, carry their kayaks out of the dock, put them in, whatever.
Okay.
But that would be another possible solution there.
All right.
That is near the Eagles nest.
The eagle.
We're gonna have chased the eagle away well before that dock would be approved by a deep,
We've got that on the record now.
unfortunately. That, I mean, it's going on right now. There's
Yeah.
too much foot.
So Bill Cavers couldn't be here tonight, but he is, he's a heck of a kayaker, and so his concept was, what about a kayak trail? Literally going from there, and it's got some concepts, so that you've got an entry point from Great Island, and you can go in multiple directions, and it is phenomenal coastline. It's like Maine, practically. There's very few places like it. So he threw out this idea, and he's got another piece to it. So he even drew it in, although I wasn't, I didn't get a chance to talk to him. I'm not sure why he didn't want to really go through Scotts Cove, which is as one of his links. So, it's a concept, starting to think about if people have a kayak, they don't know what to do, you say, hey, here's a little guide, here's a trail, try it, watch your tides, or you'll be stuck. So another potential coming off there.
I think the launch point was at the beach, and the beach
Yeah,
is
he did
quite
this one at the
small.
beach.
So when you start having, I was thinking, well, do you trailer your kayak down your car, or do you start having racks?
Mhm.
The whole beach is gonna be one big kayak rack, if you look at what's going on at Bear Creek Point.
It's almost like
Scan.
they just go to be stored there, right?
There's a lot of storage.
There's not a lot of use, there's definitely
I
not.
think there's less use, the more storage.
Right.
I like the
On
idea,
demand though, you can't believe how many people apply that we turn away.
it's
Yeah.
a lottery or something.
Because
It's a lottery.
Yeah.
Because they need a parking lot for that.
Right, I know, but you're right, and then you're like,
I like the idea of it's expensive, right? But I think Flip had something that's on that back side, like a pier or something, that gets you out to navigable water, but you're back there, it's super calm. At high tide, there's tons of stuff you can explore, you can go all the way up to the dam there, it works, right? And it's out of the way of boat traffic as well, where the beach, I know that, John, you're fighting for 5-mile-an-hour buoys to curb the powerboat wake and stuff out by Ziegler's Cove and Fish Island and such, but there's still traffic and kayaks and paddle boards and waves. It can be tough, right? I mean, you know.
I mean, the idea is it stops the high-speed turn in
Correct.
front of Scott's,
Where,
which takes you either into, the high-speed turn in front of Ziegler's that brings you into Scott's, or the back cut
Yeah.
into Fish Island.
where are you planning on putting the no wake buoy?
If you draw a straight line from Hay Island,
Yeah, yep.
right there, and run straight to the most eastern point of Contentment.
Yep, over
It's
here.
tough for
Yep.
me, it's-
Right there.
yeah, so that's a straight line right there.
Yep,
So
okay.
that becomes a 5-mile-an-hour zone,
Ah.
which ties into the Fish Island 5, or no wake,
Okay.
and the Scott Cove no wake buoy. So it all becomes one continuous no wake zone.
Great. Okay.
Is that happening?
There's a lot of things that are, because it's, I'll do this quickly. Government. So, what basically has to happen is we have to get our ordinances finalized, and then they have to be approved by the Boating Rules Division of DEEP. Anything that involves boating operation or safety has to be approved by them. I've gotten preliminary approval from them already. I gave them like round 6 of our draft. And I said, do you find anything objectionable? Would this go through? They said, as it stands, it's fine. So in addition to the approval that we need to do as far as the town, there's one small component, not all the ordinances, just that one component that has to be approved by DEEP boating rules. I've already gotten preliminary approval already for the hazard buoy in front of the beach area.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I meant to say.
Right here, somewhere in here.
Yep, right out in front of that beach area, because
good.
we've got that underwater,
Yeah.
what's left of a sea pool.
Yep.
I spoke to the person who issues them, and she said that she'll sign off on that.
Great.
Good work.
Nice.
So people are not allowed to beach, will not be allowed to beach their small center consoles at that beach, right?
You wouldn't, anyway, because you'd hit that wall.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, after you hit the wall.
Yeah. I mean, as far as beaching, it doesn't concern beaching, it is letting people know that there's an underwater obstruction there.
Can you,
You
like,
really shouldn't be beaching.
can you like daisy chain it like a swim area kind of thing to try and prohibit the tenders and small center consoles from going in there?
That's a different type of buoy, and that gets approved by someone else.
It's different altogether. Yeah.
The swim, it's like a swim area, that's a different arm.
What if we're
of
just
the-
continuously marking the hazard?
Swim buoys need to be approved by a government.
There are several different types of buoys, and they're
Swimming
approved by
rafts,
different,
everything.
there's structures, there's,
Wow.
hazard buoys, speed buoys, navigation buoys. So you've got Coast Guard auxiliary for, like the center channel buoys, those are privately maintained navigational buoys, and those are governed by the Coast Guard auxiliary. They have their database and they monitor those and provide the permits for those. Of course, you got your regular nuns and cans, that's Coast Guard.
Efficient.
Yeah,
This was more, Bill, he was kind of throwing stuff out, so we can skip on this for now. But eventually, he's thinking of ideas if he gets this thing going. Okay, this is what we were just talking
it's
about.
right there, yeah.
So, I think part of it will be determined about what Park and Rec and everybody else, is it gonna be a swimming area or not? That could change a lot of things, especially for any boating or whatever, but that,
But that'll really, it's really not Park and Rec, it's the Great Island
I'm
Advisory
sorry, you're
Committee.
right, sorry, Great Island, I meant
Which,
to,
again, under the
you're right, I understand, the Great Island
professional
Commission.
guidance of whichever firm we select for the
Right.
master plan.
Okay. So, we'll see how that plays out from there.
But talking, going back to the earlier discussion about fishing,
Yeah.
big lobe of rocks.
Right in here?
Yeah, that whole thing is
Yeah.
prime
It's
fish.
fairly deep in there, 28 feet or so at even low tide, I think. or
Yeah,
15,
people
20 feet.
will definitely want to try to fish off those rocks.
Do we think that we want to be consistent with the no fishing, like we have it at Pear Tree Point rocks, and then, I don't know, on Lee Beach, there's rocks there too, I don't know if there's any close to it.
You know, I would be speculating at this point. I think anywhere there's rocks that are sharp and dropping into the water, there's going to be concern.
But it doesn't sound like the town actually enforces it anywhere, because there's people who fish at both Lee Beach and Pear Tree Point Beach.
Enforcement is always a
Yeah.
challenge in this
Yeah.
town. Maybe not in this town, in every town, but
Yeah.
enforcement is always a challenge.
All right, keep moving along here. All right, so then we're gonna talk about the overview of the whole harbor itself. Okay, so this was, I was using Google Earth and I don't have enough to work with, but this was a year ago, and I counted like 34 buoys. I don't know how many moorings are actually legitimate there or whatever, but just as a reference point. So that was a year ago. Are there that many there now? I don't know. And it's just something to think about more than making decisions on. But this was the one that was interesting to me. So this isn't even an active. This was September 27, 2014, on a Saturday. I was hoping I could get something during COVID, or at least last summer during a weekend, because I'm sure it would be double that amount of triple. I don't know. It's just to get a sense of how crowded it really gets. When you drive through it on a boat, you don't get the sense of how much it is. But I mean, that's our goal, is to how do we protect this pristine thing with all the volume that's there now and going to continue on forward. So, and the rafting back in September, you got 4 on the one, whatever. So, I don't know. Do you have any idea of how many moorings are even out there today? Is it in the 30 zone, you think?
I'm still studying this
Yeah.
because there's a lot of people who have permits but no moorings.
Yeah.
And I know there's moorings in there that, Tom Bell told me there were moorings in there that were unauthorized.
Sure.
But of course, to get them removed, how do you do that? Contractor's not gonna do it for free,
No.
and I don't have the equipment to do it.
Nor do
So,
we have the budget.
and usually what winds up happening is I've been talking with the primary contractor in there, is the chain breaks, buoy floats away, and now you got a big piece of metal at the bottom of the cove, and nobody owns it. Talking with him, he said his recommendation would be to start all over,
Interesting.
to rearrange this so that
Okay.
it's more efficient.
Yeah.
It's just become an area over decades of people just dropping moorings,
Yeah.
or just, there's no organization to it.
The willy-nilly effect, drop it here and drop it there. Okay.
Well, and like I said, it changed. It used to be a privately maintained berthing
Sure.
harbor at one point.
Sure.
And then once that stopped, we have a day harbor now, so.
So then I came up with some interesting ideas that I saw. So what about everybody's using it as a bathroom when they need to jump in the water? So it concerns me that this is a pristine location and everybody, when they're drinking, they're partying, they're there all day, they don't have a boat big enough with a head, in the water they go. So this is an interesting concept that the state of California does. I'm sure it'll never get passed here, but they are concerned about how people need to find a rest area. So we either do something like this, which probably never get passed, or we have to take care of on land. And I think they've never done that because it was private ownership, but I think as a community, we should offer that better experience for boaters and keep the quality of the water better. The other concern is if we do allow swimming at that other beach, they will probably take samples for E. coli like they do at the other beaches, and maybe they'll find something and we have a problem. I don't know. So it's just a thought that I'm trying to say we need to do a better job of letting boaters do their business, but not in the water.
But then if it's on land, people are gonna have to go to the dock,
Right.
back and forth.
Yeah.
There's
Right.
that issue.
Yeah, it's a cool idea, but then if people are swimming to that,
Dangerous.
that'd be dangerous because of on a weekend, the amount of boat
Right.
traffic. Like, I stay like right around my boat.
Yeah,
I just don't feel
it's-
comfortable
I
swimming.
agree, there's no easy answer for it, but I think it's foolish to ignore this.
It is an interesting idea,
Right?
yeah.
It's
Like-
foolish to ignore this because
Yeah.
it's an issue, you know, and we've all been there, right? When you gotta go, all right, enough of that, all right, moving on.
No, I saw a guy with his 5-year-old
Sure,
hanging over it and
exactly,
doing,
yeah, number 2, yeah,
Yep.
I love it, right. So, this, everybody probably knows about it from our group. It's a great, they did 2,600 flushes last year, or pullouts, and maybe we can figure out how to educate people up that have that ability on their boat, which is probably not many that come in, well, maybe, there's enough of them. It's probably well known, but we want to make sure that somehow we can get that communication. You come into our harbor and you have that system, you got a freebie, you know, don't think about dumping or whatever.
they come over to Ziegler's?
Yeah,
They do?
absolutely.
They come in a row.
Yep, they'll go all the way to Stanford.
The dairy room.
Actually, they'll go all the way to, down to the Bronx. They'll go to the Bronx as well. Yeah. So, yeah, it's great. They're all out of Norm Bloom's, they hang
No,
out
no,
there.
I know, I just, I
And they-
didn't realize
cruise
they
down,
came
yeah,
all the way over to
yeah.
Darien.
So, yeah, they're college kids and they're just looking for, like, call me, you know, text me and we'll go and do our job. So, it's something maybe we can think about at least getting it out there as a educational thing.
I hear the operators get big tips.
They do.
It's a good summer
You
job.
always
They do.
tip
It's a great
them.
job.
Always tip.
Great
Yeah.
job.
The guys love that job.
Hey, John, do you send anything out
You don't
in
get too
a,
many dates.
in an email to mooring holders? Or, like, would that be something you could add in, like, an annual email that you send out or something that says, like, FYI, pump out is available on this VHF channel, or text these people? Like,
Darien Boat Club has pump out.
They do? Yeah, that's great, right there.
yeah,
And that's open to non-members as well.
Yeah.
I don't know,
And
you
the
have,
If you can get in there.
Yeah, it does. I'll be honest with you, my personal experience with the pump out, not good.
Oh, really? The guys
I
with boats that come on?
I had a mooring in Darien Harbor for 2
Yeah.
years.
Okay.
And I called the pump out boat 3-4 times.
Oh, boy.
They never came.
Oh, geez.
And then I went to 5 Mile River, blocked by a boat, couldn't get access to it. And then I went to the public ramp in Norwalk, and their pump didn't work. In fact, it sort of did a reverse on
Oh.
me.
Oh, wow.
And added instead of took away.
Oh, jeez.
yeah.
There is a pump out that's pretty good at Norwalk Cove.
Yeah, I went to all 3 that day, and I did.
Trifecta.
It was like a bad
I
day.
did, it was a horrible
Shitty day.
Yeah.
I've had good experiences with these guys.
Well,
Uh,
you have a captive email list of people, so maybe, I don't know, if this service has improved since the years, it might be interesting just to put a footnote in one of those emails for mooring holders that says, for all Darien mooring holders, like FYI, these guys are here, right?
Yeah, so in theory, you can call them on 77 and they'll come over to Darien Harbor to pump you up.
That's what,
And,
No idea.
and they will
They're-
come and pump your boat out even if you're not there.
That's true. But leave a tip for them. They're always looking for that tip.
But they,
So,
they will
yeah,
come.
it's hard to hear that because I always thought it was somewhat flawless, but obviously.
You know, I always seem to get the
you get the shitty
and
jobs.
I get the S end of the stick. So I don't know what happened, but I'm sure other people have had good luck with it, but I didn't.
Okay. And one other one here, I couldn't help myself. So we all know there's all kinds of interesting things at the bottom of Ziegler's Cove over the years. I don't know what the bottom is like. If it's full of mud, then it might not be recoverable. But there's scuba clubs, and we could make a heck of a public relations pitch that, hey, we own this area, and we as a town of Darien are now going to improve it with cleaning up the bottom for 100 years or whatever of debris. I talked with the police department about it. They're trying to go through their whole scuba program, but it might be something that they would, along with scuba clubs, could do. We get Channel 12 to film it, make a nice big hit, and we clean up the stuff. And you do a small section at a time, so we're not pushing off all the boaters coming in. I think it's got potential. We'll have to think of whether it can actually be done, but it would actually be a positive to our pristine harbor.
If there's any
Yeah.
level of muck down there, how would you even find?
Well, that's the problem. So I haven't talked with anybody who's actually dove there, And if they tell me it's all muck, then forget this idea altogether. But if it's got some hard bottom to it, and I guess you could pull up a mooring or two and find out exactly what's on the bottom there.
Well,
find
plenty
out.
of people anchor there. I can't remember ever seeing, I mean, maybe it means that it's not all muck, because when I've anchored there in the past, it wasn't like it came up all black.
Yeah.
and
Where are
gooey.
we talking about?
Anywhere in
In
Ziegler's
the
Cove.
COVID zone.
Oh, okay.
It's an idea. I love it if we could, if it turns out to be some practical, you know, you'd have to get people willing to do it, the police would have to be there, power squadron, you know, cordon off a section,
But
people see it happen.
It really should happen in the middle of the winter. I mean,
Or shoulder season, right?
yeah, so when the water's clear. In the summer,
Okay.
it would be,
The only opposite of the summer is you get a lot more press because people would see what's going on there, you know, but if you can't see, you can't see, so.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll throw this out as an idea that maybe we can pull it out to do something positive out of it. All right, let's see if we got anything else here.
My Ray-Ban sunglasses are down there somewhere. I'll bring them back.
your Crocs.
There might be some real valuable stuff, you know? All right, so this is the one that's gonna be the hardest, right? Boats wanna come in, they wanna have access, they wanna use the bathroom, they're non-residents, they're small boats, they're big boats. What do we do about that? I don't have an answer, but it's all gonna have to be decided sometime. And I think we're gonna have more pressure on that this year with people can't drive in, and residents are gonna say, well, heck, you know, I wanna get on there, big signs, may not do it. We don't wanna have a cop there all the time, you know, I don't know, to me, it's the controversial point, because it's, you know, how do we handle that?
Is there any discussion about porta potties this summer, or you haven't gotten that far?
Again, because,
Haven't gotten that far.
because we thought we would be opening the roads and we were gonna make decisions based on the roads being open. Now, there has not yet been a discussion,
Right.
whether there'll be any change or whether the preliminary rules of just walking the loop and nowhere else may stay in place. I just don't know, it hasn't been discussed yet.
Does anyone know what happened to the T that came off, the T dock that came off? Because for years,
They took it off at one point, and then on the, I don't know, how was there's like a beach, not another beach area, but more towards the
Hay Island.
towards the Ziegler's farm side. They were all up there for a number of years,
Yeah.
probably 2-3 years, and now they're gone. And I don't know if they were in bad shape or.
Some of them, they'd cut out this middle for the oystering, they were doing the
Yeah.
seeding oyster there,
True,
so they
yeah,
cut it
yeah.
all out. I think what you're talking about is,
Yeah.
they were all laid up in
Yeah,
here,
you're right.
yeah. So, yeah, last time I saw them when they were there, they'd cut out the centers and they were using them for,
If you're going straight into Ziegler's Cove, it would have been right in front of you.
yeah.
To the west of the boathouse.
so I don't know what to do. So that's, you know, I don't have any solutions to that, but it's gonna be the spot. And, you know, can we leave it up to an average person to go in there and not sit there for 4 hours while he walks around the place? Or, you know, people gonna understand that you don't have to have a harbor person there being a police officer?
Well, we
I don't know.
have, the fire boat is permanently stationed
Yep,
there,
right.
right? And that is a remarkably large vessel
It is.
these
It
days.
is, right? Yep.
And are they gonna put signage up saying no docking, no private docking? Or?
I'm guessing so, but again, we
But
haven't
it's
specifically
like-
discussed it, we need to discuss
It's
it.
like time is up
Yeah,
upon
I'm
us.
aware, I'm aware.
But I mean, they can fill it up with boats, so it's not like inviting to bring your tender.
Yeah, I don't know.
It would be a bit of a shame if there wasn't like dinghy access or something, because I mean, as a cruiser, right? I mean,
Well, you can't just have dinghies, because not everybody has a cruiser, right? So you gotta be able to have other,
oh, but
The
there's,
guy
Well,
tender
you
can go in.
don't actually,
Yeah.
I don't think,
if you
I
go into
don't necessarily
harbors,
agree with that.
harbors all over, there's like
like,
There's
access
dinghy
for a
docks
dinghy
everywhere.
dock, right?
yeah, but you're gonna tell some people who are Darien boat owners that they can't bring their boat in
Yeah,
because they don't have a
there's
big enough boat with a
Almost
tender?
every real harbor has a dinghy dock, and it does not have a equivalent dock for people with a 30-foot boat.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be interesting, because I'm not quite agreeing with you on that, so we'll have to see how that plays out. any case.
It's just not that big of a dock.
I know.
You wouldn't have room for.
But if you go, I mean, you think about going to, all sorts of, Block Island, right? Just as an example, there's a dock that is only, it's
dinghies.
there specifically for dinghies, hard and soft rubber boats, right? Or hard dinghies. It's not meant for a 15-foot whaler or a 20-foot center console.
How do they get into, if they need to go to shore, how do they get in?
There's a launch service.
In that
And
application,
then
there's a launch service, but.
Then there's also the dig dock.
Okay.
And
So
so
they-
you have to usually climb over other people's dinks to get to the dock because it's so packed.
Most of
can't-
those have a full-time harbor master though too, right?
They got a lot of things there.
But you can't necessarily say, we need to provide access for a person coming on their 40-foot boat, right? But there is access. If you choose to paddleboard in, you could tie a paddleboard up at that point of egress, right? Which is
Okay.
minimal, but provides a service.
But the interesting thing about the dinghy dock concept is the people you're really providing the benefit for are people who don't live in Darien. Most of the people who are gonna have dinghies on their boats are people from Long Island or people from.
Correct, but this is like the not in my backyard thing, right? Because if you have a cruising boat and a dinghy, right, you go to places to experience it and take a walk and see what is there and enjoy it and different, right? And so to say God, I really like going to Oyster Bay and using the dinghy dock or Cold Spring Harbor and using the dinger dock and seeing what's going on there and taking a walk around this loop. I don't want that in my property. And half of me is I don't want that on my property.
But I wanna go out Otis Bay.
But the other half
Oyster
is
Bay, I know. It's a whole concept about resident, non-resident.
right? It's like Waveney or
Yeah,
Towns
like
Point,
Waveney,
right?
yeah.
You look at all these parks. and-
Dinghy dock or not, all of this is gonna come up in the master plan.
Yeah, so
right?
we'll get
But
all
I mean, in
this.
the meantime, practically, what's going to happen, absent a police officer standing there all summer,
People are going to use
people are
it.
going to walk in because they can, and they're going to meet friends in Ziegler's because they're there, and they're gonna walk out to the end of the dock, and someone's gonna come in and pick them up.
Yeah.
And Uber Eats is going to be coming in.
You already
No,
have.
that's a long walk though for
There's no
Uber
cars,
Eats.
No, they drive up.
Not, well, they're,
but there's no cars this summer.
The Zoo Eats have a
In the
whole.
future, yes.
Oh, in the past, though, I'm talking, they've
Yeah.
done it.
yeah, even though it was
Yeah,
Ziegler.
even
so-
when it was Ziegler's, they were doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to happen. It's just a matter
I
of
mean,
time.
so you're going to have a constant stream of people, traffic coming to this dock, no matter what the signage says, unless you have someone there keeping them away, right? And so what do we do about it, if anything?
Can you gate it?
That's a
Can you
great
put a
summer
gate at the
job.
top of that way, or no?
Standing on the end of the dock.
With
I've
the
never-
boat?
So-
And just make it a municipal dock.
I'll make sure this
Pump out
gets,
hose.
I'll make sure this gets raised sooner rather than later, because you're right, boats are starting to go in the water.
So I think a lot of this is in the little spreadsheet that,
Well, you're up next.
oh, well, so,
You're on
everybody
the
saw this.
screen. Look, you're on the screen.
Oh, yeah, well, so, a lot of this is, Flip had started this, back last year. Talks about the boat tenders, Sam added a bunch of, commentary into, I don't know if people had a chance to go back through it.
I had two comments on this draft. One is, what percentage of our reader base will actually know what anthropologic salinization means?
I thought about that when I
I
wrote
think I
that
know what it
Your
means.
questions go to this.
I think I know what it means, but,
in. Man-made salt,
yeah.
man-made salt.
So, but the more serious comment was, in there's a recommendation that the town use organic fertilizers rather than all fertilizers. I personally believe our recommendation is that the town should use no fertilizer on this piece of property because it has limited soil to absorb the fertilizer. It runs immediately into the sound. And we're not having playing fields on this property. We should just say no fertilizer.
What about the compost idea?
Well, compost is okay, but the town's not set up to really be a compost. They want to spray big vats of fertilizer on things, or spread
Those are, it's pretty good comments.
But I think we should just say no fertilizer. That's the direction that all of civilization should be going right now.
Yes.
I agree.
So, the thoughts were like, let's think about coastal wildlife habitat preservation. That includes the poor eagles, the poor owl. It's also all the seabirds, and then also, the oysters and the fish and everything that's living in and around there people want to fish for. And then also, because so many of us do the water quality testing, we test in Ziegler's Cove, and we test for salinization and turbidity and dissolved oxygen. We know that in the summertime those issues are all exacerbated, and the soil erosion and sedimentation we talked about earlier going into the waters. To be careful about the land usage. We want to keep as much of the pollution out of there, which means like let's not salt the roads, let's not put too much sand down on the roads, let's not put pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers, and think about controlling stormwater runoff by creating rain gardens and ways to divert stormwater runoff. And there's a lot of hilly areas there, and if you start bringing cars in, you're going to have stuff like the tires from cars give off plastic particles, and those end up in the water, near water sources. And so, this is such a beautiful, pristine island. Like, let's think about all those things that could impact the shorelines as we go into getting the plans and getting people coming up
All
with
of
a
the
global plan.
firms that were selected, and certainly all 16, we got 16 very impressive proposals. It was very, very difficult to scale it back to 6, really, really difficult. But all of the firms bring a broad array, either from their on-staff or they're partnering with sub-consultants with deep expertise in every necessary discipline for this project, but including specialty environmental firms with people with the degrees that these people have across the spectrum of services that will be needed is extraordinarily impressive. So
Yeah.
every single firm has a deep bench of individuals with environmental engineering degrees. So that is absolutely will be part of the work that's being done for us.
Unfortunately, like DEEP doesn't prohibit the use of pesticides and herbicides and fertilizers. And there are, there's best practices and there's what's acceptable at a state level. And so I think we want to be thinking beyond what's permittable versus what we want to see for the area as we look at this.
And perhaps you'll see from the soil or the sampling results from the dredging project, if that comes to pass, that it is contaminated per today's regs that were updated a couple of years ago. And you kind of hang your hat on that and say, well, the use of these these contaminants in the samples got us to this point that we needed to go ahead and dredge and create algal blooms or you name it. So it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and it drives up the cost for the taxpayer. We're seeing that on the Pear Tree Point project, which is problematic. So anyway, things to think about.
Ideas.
Thanks for the dialogue. It's like we say, well, let's see what those master, think they got all our ideas. We'll find
So we thought, if people were good with what we talked about, we can forward ideas on to the commission so the commission's thinking about it. People want to approve this or updated version of this because the season is starting. Sort of
It's
better now,
It doesn't matter what schedule they're on, the commission, that people are gonna.
Yeah.
There was a boat in Ziegler's Cove on Sunday.
Right. So,
Yeah.
if not now, when? Right.
This might be an unpopular opinion.
The new guy, here we go.
Yeah.
Do it.
Welcome. I have never been to Ziegler's Cove. I've never been to Great Island, so bear with me. But I understand that there are cars coming in. There's people that are going to want to get to a boat. Do you need to provide anything at all to anybody that's coming to the little harbor? They're coming for a reason. Right? They're coming, and I have plenty of years under the belt of going to sneaky coves and the Barnegat Bay. And I'm not going there to go get off the boat. It's going to just tie up the boat and be quiet and hang out with friends, or there's a bunch of other boats there, and you're there for that. It's not to get off and go see the equestrian facility or go check out the gardens or something like that. So, I don't know, I'm playing devil's advocate here. Do you need to provide any kind of bathroom service or dock for people to get on and off? Or
Well,
is it just
it's
a way
not-
to mitigate
I think
that?
it's not so much that any of us are, some of us are saying under certain circumstances, it would be nice to provide things, it would be good to provide things. But what we're also trying to anticipate in the near term is just what people are gonna do by force of nature. And,
Invited or not.
yeah, so people are gonna wanna fish, people are gonna wanna clam, people on boats are gonna have some pops. They're not gonna get off to go look for a bathroom, they're just gonna get off because there's been a lot of press around this and they gonna wanna wander around. And if you have a dock, they'll just mosey their tender up to the dock and get off and walk around. That's just the way,
Human nature.
yeah, it's gonna work. So we're trying to anticipate those things and head off a bad situation or an undesirable situation before it starts.
And then separately, there are, what, probably half the boats that are in there on the weekend don't have heads, probably.
Well, that's
So
definitely
that's just a
true.
whole separate issue.
Control the water quality, yeah, sure. Okay.
That's
At
it.
some level, I think I agree with you, right? I mean, I go to Waveney Park all the time. There's nobody there. I think people are generally well-behaved and walking their dogs or doing whatever they want to do. I think that property is in such a state of disrepair today. You know, you don't want people walking into the squash court that looks like it's about to fall over,
Yeah.
you know, into the mansion, which needs a lot of work well before it's accessible to any kind of public traffic. It's a beautiful spot. It's a mess in many ways too, and I think that's why they're trying to keep people out of there for now.
Well, and the dock is a particular kind of attractive nuisance because as soon as one tender is tied up on it, everybody will think it's free. And it's unlike Waveney, which has a lot of parking, the dock is gonna immediately get crowded, and then there's the fireboat there, and
I think it's also like a cultural thing of boating too. Is like you take your dinghy and you go and explore, and that's part of it. That's
Yeah.
better or worse. It just is like that's one of the things that kind of happens, right?
Explore in a way that other people maybe can't.
in a way that other
Easier
people can't, but it
access.
just people explore.
Yeah.
It's
Is having the fireboat and police boat there any sort of deterrent that you
Police
noticed in
boats.
the past? Not the police boat, that's not the police boat. But by having a fireboat there, there's nothing that suggests, well, this is official property, I shouldn't be up
well,
Doesn't stop the
Guess
Uber
we'll
drivers.
see, I guess we'll see.
here. Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
like if you put a gate at the
it
top.
may
of the
it may discourage some people, but if you actually wanted to stop people from coming to the dock, you could imagine signage that would be more persuasive than just, oh, there's a fireboat. Because actually, I think a lot of people want to go look at that fireboat
Right.
too, with its
I think that's
fancy
gonna be its
engine
own
package
attraction.
and everything.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, they make like gangway locked doors.
yeah.
Yeah, you could block it
You
off.
could put one of those up.
Nice sharp barbed wire, yeah, I get that look.
Spikes coming out the side of the dock.
Razor wire, like I thought.
Welcome to Darien.
Think of that.
And there's a dog back there too.
No dogs.
No dog, sorry, no dog.
So we want a motion to approve this, to send this on with the updates that Bill brought up in his presentation? Yeah? So,
Did we
Motion
talk
second.
about all of this? I mean, like, consider issuing and charging specific fishing licenses for Great Island? I don't know.
okay, yeah, let's talk about whatever.
Fishing licenses?
You know, all those licenses in the world of enforcement,
I might suggest that things that are immediate, like this body thinks, like, the Great Island Commission really needs to be talking about this now, you send on, and some of these other things, I would suggest would be appropriate as this group engages with the master planning firm, who are gonna be doing the visioning and talking to stakeholders and getting ideas of how do you see the property used, what do you want? I mean, there's gonna be every variety from do nothing to let's have a massive swimming pool complex and everything in between. So some of these ideas I think are for further down the road as the visioning is being done than for the committee to be looking at
Yeah.
right now.
I think one of the ideas is I wanted to get some feelings here, but I remember Monica specifically telling me that your time will come when we'd like to
Yes.
look at it.
Yes,
So I think part of this is we've got ourselves at least thinking this way, so when it comes, and I think she's banking that on when the master plan comes back.
Yeah, but
no, as part of, not when it comes back, as part of creating the master
Ah,
plan is
okay.
when these
Okay.
ideas should be brought forward
Okay.
with the consultants. But there are some things like,
that are today stuff.
Are today.
Because the votes.
and I think today's stuff should be sussed out and sent forward, and I can certainly be discussing with them as well, but just saying, like, voting season is now, in a couple weeks, and have we thought about what's going to happen with dock and access from the dock, things of that nature. People, I mean, again, you're supposed to stay on the roadways, people are going off the roadways, they're looking at different ways to do, I mean, there are cameras on the island, they are watching the cameras, and
The
But
dock
I-
and the kayaking and swimming and stuff, those are the things that are gonna hit us.
now. Right.
Yeah. Though I also do think them using pesticides and fertilizers now, that it's town property, has an impact. If you don't get ahead of that stuff, you have contamination issues, so. But yeah, we can go through it and parse out, obviously, like, building out a dock for kayaks, that's down the road.
That's definitely
Obviously,
down the road.
fishing licenses down the road.
But
But you will have
fishing as a
people-
whole
But
could
fishing,
be a bullet
but fishing
point,
safety for sure.
right? That's,
Talking about what
yeah.
potential signage, yes.
Because people will walk in. They'll walk in with a fishing rod and,
But in theory, they're not going off with the, it depends on
That's-
it depends on if there's any change from the current
that's true, yeah.
restrictions.
Wonderful point, yep.
If it's decided that for the summer, out of the road, we're gonna let people wander a little further afield, can you go up on the lawn behind the mansion? Then yes, then that would be more of an issue, because
Mhm.
people, in theory, you could walk in with your, I mean, it's a pretty long walk, but
Yeah.
people could walk in. If it's decided to leave it with just the walking loop, then in theory, people can't get out to the
They
water.
shouldn't be there anyway, yeah.
But that's
I did the-
TBD.
I did the loop a couple of weeks ago, and I was down by the statues, looking out from the path, and these two women, older women, had walked through the other side of the lawn, and they were beckoning me, oh, come through. It's like very strange. I was like, no, I'm good, but they were like, oh yeah, you can come down
You
here.
see people with dogs, you see, I mean,
Yeah.
there's no enforcement as far as I can tell.
There's a police officer every now and then stationed.
Yeah, the police are making some swings
They're
through,
pulling in.
but enforcement is a challenge
And I
for
think
all of
the,
them.
So we'll do a staged delivery, and that does make sense. You don't want to overwhelm the process.
Right now,
Is
we have, so, I
anyone-
mean, we'll be getting the focus for the next little bit of time is we're gonna be getting the proposal books on Friday, and, I mean, we also literally waded through over 1,000 pages of reading material in a
I
couple
won't
of
be
weeks.
there, Bill's gonna be there, but Lori, can you make sure they're thinking about
Yes.
boat access? 'Cause
Yes.
that's gonna be,
Yes.
yeah.
Lori, have you thought about putting someone out there for the summer, just like there's someone in the guard?
I think that needs to be discussed,
Yeah.
what the enforcement's gonna look like.
Okay, so,
Maybe we have gate guards at the two beaches, which help a little bit, but it's a big parcel. Keep track of.
Minutes?
yeah, so we need to approve the minutes from the January special meeting and the February
Anybody have any
meeting.
comments?
Thought the minutes were great.
Yeah.
Somebody wrote them very well. Thank you, sir.
Well,
Lori,
at least
we
I can speak to the
updated your
January one.
comments for that.
Yep, thank you.
So that's in there. Okay, so we have a motion to
So moved.
Okay, seconded?
Yeah.
Approved.
Approved.
Um,
John's gonna give a short harbor master update
Okay.
of where the mooring ordinances stand and anything else that's.
Sure, okay, so we had a meeting a few weeks ago with Patty Gage? Yeah, I don't know, I can't remember how to.
Town
pronounce
lawyer.
it. Town lawyer. So anyway, I just asked her where we stood, and this was as of last week, so this is in reference to this week. It says, I'm making progress. I have compiled the list of how surrounding towns handle the indemnification issue and are finishing up research on whether a clause in the mooring permit would be enforceable. There were 2 clauses in the mooring permit. One's been removed already, but there was still another one they wanted to take a look at, so they're working on that one.
They moved to subrogation,
Yep. So there's, the other one is they're talking about.
the indemnification.
Yeah, is what they're talking about, looking over now. It says, we can then finalize and revise ordinance and regulations for review, hopefully early next week, so this is this week. So, it looks like we are making progress.
And that version, I take it that version that I sent you was the right version to forward off to them?
It had the most recent date.
Yeah,
So,
okay, good.
yeah. Thank you.
All right, so one thing I wanted to make everybody aware of, off of Greens Ledge Light, there are now 3 very large mooring balls, steel, surrounded by a perimeter of about 10 flashing yellow buoys. 12. You counted them?
I counted.
Okay.
Constellations out your
Flashing all
backyard.
night long?
Yeah.
They flash all night long.
Yeah.
It's
Nice.
like, it's very actually disorienting to see them at night, because like, they're all going off at different
Okay.
times.
Imagine if you're a migratory bird. Good.
Yeah.
So anyway, this has to do with the train bridge that they're doing over in Norwalk. I'd been in discussions with the train bridge the train bridge that goes from South Norwalk to East Norwalk, the Norwalk River.
Metro North.
There's an old, turn of the previous century
Right by the Maritime Center.
railroad bridge there.
Okay.
The Maritime Center, IMAX theater has been torn down. It's gone. So they're off. They've got another hang up. Now they're trying to drill a tunnel underneath the river, and some other group is having a problem with that. But the bottom line is, pardon me? A tunnel to provide power to whatever train, because they've had to remove all of the stanchions that provide power to the train. So now they have to run power underneath the bridge to somehow make their power for trains. I don't know the specifics of the project. I just know some of the environmental things that are coming through on this. But the bottom line is, these buoys are going to be for barges, and the barges are going to be bringing the deconstruction material of the bridge out of the harbor. So there's going to be 3 very large barges out there at any given time. There's also going to be very large barges in Norwalk Harbor also. The crux of it is, these buoys are out there, but they're not going to be used for 2 years yet. They're going to be out there for 6 to 7 years.
Wow.
What?
Wow.
Yeah, so they're going to be there for quite some time. The reason they're there now is because the person that was in charge of putting the water said, well, I've got them, but if you want them on land, I'm going to charge you storage. So Deep said, throw them in the water. So
See who hits them.
Deep and the Coast Guard. Actually, I think it's a Coast Guard. Anyway, Coast Guard. Coast Guard Coast Guard and Army Corps of Engineers and DOT and Deep are all involved in this. The Norwalk Harbor Master didn't have much to do with it, but what sparked it was I saw pictures of the buoys in the water on the Norwalk Coastal Commission website or Facebook page, and they looked like they were in Darien waters. So I made a post, I made some inquiries. The Norwalk Harbor Master hadn't been out there yet. His boat wasn't in the water yet, nor is mine. And I got a call about a week later from one of the officers from the Marine unit and said, you gotta come out here, you gotta see this, this is unbelievable. I think it's in Darien, you know, how can we not know about this? So I started a conversation with the Norwalk Harbor Master again, the Deputy Harbor Master, who's also a member of the Norwalk Marine Division. And what came out of it, which was interesting, we determined that these buoys, in fact, are not in Darien, Darien waters. You know, we've all talked about how, you know, Darien's harbors, but we never really understood where does Darien waters go.
You know it by heart.
So, interestingly enough, Greenwich, Stamford, and Darien's waters run all the way out to the New York line in Long Island Sound. Norwalk, Westport, Fairfield, Bridgeport, Stratford, very, very close to their to their shoreline. So, but the thing is when I think we've all been under the impression that when that line comes out of 5 Mile River, it just took a straight shot down towards, but keeping Greensledge Light in Norwalk. Actually, as soon as it comes out of 5 Mile River, it takes a jog to the west and then straightens out again. So none of these buoys, as it turns out, are actually in Darien waters.
And Green's Ledge Light is definitely in Norwalk waters.
Yeah, even if you draw that straight line out, it's still in Norwalk.
The
But even
buoys are pretty far out. They're actually in decently deep water. I would, at least to my eye, they're south of the line from the tip of Long Neck Point to Greensledge Light. They're outside of that. And they're over closer to the light, but maybe they're like 2/3 of the way over towards the light.
But even if it wasn't Darien waters, what would you do about it?
Well, it just becomes an issue for the Darien Marine Police, because now if somebody hits one of those buoys, is it a Darien situation or is it a Norwalk situation?
But everybody comes to the aid.
They do, but who's the lead? There's always like a lead on the incident. So if it happens in Norwalk waters, Norwalk becomes the lead, Darien becomes the assistant. So that's what they're concerned about, because nobody knew this was coming, and nobody expected it this early. It's 2 years ahead of when the actual
I thought
construction.
there was some sort of naval exercise out there. When I first saw it. I was like, what are all these, there's all these lights. It was like a SEAL team in their ribs going around. It's like,
I saw a picture of those anchors somewhere. I think they're like 27,000 pounds.
No, they're 9,000 pound Danforth anchors.
Okay, so the three of them together are 27,000.
Yeah.
But they're Danforth, that's
They're
right.
Danforth anchors. I have a picture of them.
Ginormous.
They're huge.
So in 2 years, that
7
contractor's gonna have
years.
to pull up and service them.
Coast Guard,
Yeah.
yeah, Coast Guard.
There you go, we need a new chain.
Yeah.
Takes a while to rust through that chain, I bet.
Well, anyway, it's not my problem. It's Norwalk Harbor Master. Ordinances.
But they are sort of, you know, if you've ever had the sense that you've gone, like, for instance, the Chopin Point Oyster Farm, when you're in, it's like all of a sudden in the middle of it and there's buoys all
They're
around.
right in the channel.
It's the same sort of thing,
You know,
because there's 15 lights going all different.
You can't go from Smith's Ledge to the point to the marker off Chopin without going through the
Right.
lobster fields. Ridiculous.
The mooring field north of Darien Boat Club, I've actually started relocating people out of that area and moving them out into the proper harbor. They haven't been moved there yet, but they've been put on notice that their boats will be out in the harbor. Last month, I went out with Norokan Yacht Club's mooring team, and we did an assessment of the tackle up there. Some of it is actually better than you think. Some of the people have been privately by themselves, maybe they found somebody to do some work for them, but some of the chain was actually better than expected. In one case, we went out there and there was actually one ball that was just floating around tied to another buoy, swinging back and forth. It had broken loose. We found another one that was hanging by a thread. It's all, a lot of it is in disrepair. I spoke to one guy yesterday who was giving me a hard time about relocation, and I just said, you're gonna have to move because it all has to be redone in there. And he said he'd been maintaining it, and I said, how did you pull the anchor? He goes, well, I didn't. I said, well,
That's not maintained.
that's not maintaining. It hasn't been inspected. So he'll be moving also, but a lot of that equipment in there, maybe some of the chain has been done, but there's no winter sticking up there. There's no maintenance. If there is, it's shabby. Buoys tied to other buoys. We found one buoy that was submerged 3 feet under the water. It's all wrapped around the anchor. There's just a lot of work that needs to be done up there. I also think I'm going to eliminate that chain that runs east to west, that runs along the area that they're going to wind up dredging anyway. That's a very shallow area, and a lot of times those boats, when at low tide, they actually get grounded, or they swing into the channel as you try and go around the boat club. I don't see a benefit to having them there, but I think I'm going to remove them, and whoever's in that area right now is either going to get located out in the harbor, or if they have a small boat like a whaler, they'll just be put on the north-south strings once they're completed. And then just a quick update on harbor progress. Right now, 63% of the moorings are fully approved, meaning they've paid agreement and they've submitted their registration. And I removed, so far, 25 people from the wait list.
Nice.
Some people left as a result of conversation and how, okay, if you turn me down next year, you're gonna lose your space. Many of them just came to the realization they're not ready for a boat. Others, just after the initial notification and 5 reminders, did not review. I'd given a deadline till March 31st. I took them off the list. I've only had one person actually call and say something. So, I'll leave it at that, so we're not here till midnight.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Task forces, Rob, Sam, and I went and did our prep for this season's Unified Water Quality Study. We kick off in May, going out twice a month. Everybody's invited to join if they feel like it. But at dawn, Sam, right?
Well, it's interesting, they want, through the summer, they want a sampling of low tide and high tide. It's not all high tides. And you're supposed to be back at the dock an hour and a half after dawn, so there's also consistent light penetration in the waters that you're sampling up and down the sound. So it tends to be around dawn that you leave the
June
dock.
is pretty early.
Hmm?
June is pretty early.
May
Yeah.
and June,
Yeah.
Tired top.
I bring
Like
the
4:30.
I bring the boat in the
Yeah.
night before to the Norotan dock, and we leave from there. And how many stations are there? Like 12?
12.
And they're between Darien Harbor, Ziegler's, the edge of Scott's, and then actually all the way around over to
Cove Harbor.
Cove in Stanford, and then Norotan Bay.
But it's beautiful out there in the morning, so
It is beautiful.
if anybody wants to join, let us know. We'd like watch the weather report.
we came in sometime, I guess, in September, and some fishermen just came in, and we tie up at the boat club for the final series of tests, right to the end of one of the piers, and some fishermen pulled in. And they said that they had just seen 25 porpoises off the tip of Long Neck Point. 25,
Nice.
a pod. I think that's extraordinary. And kind of nice.
And they do the report card every 2 years, and so they'll be coming out with a report card for the previous 2 years soon, so we'll see what our embayment grades are for Darien, so that'll be good. And then spring cleanup, what's our date for spring cleanup?
You had proposed May 11th.
I changed it to whatever you wanted.
21st, I think you had?
Hopefully later than May 11th.
I think we did a Saturday,
And you wanted low tide also, right?
yes. Sorry, I didn't look beforehand.
And Lori, Dave
What?
was suggesting maybe Great Island for part of the cleanup, I don't know if there's any.
I
Appetite
would
for
check with Monica, probably.
Anyway, I will send out a reminder for whatever the date is. I'll include you as well. The routine is meet typically at Pear Tree Point parking lot. I will bring trash bags, bring wear jeans and boots. It's muddy out there. I suggest bringing a sharp pocket knife. We've cut off a lot of ropes and things stuck in jetties and
Gloves.
yeah, bring gloves, and be,
Bring any relatives, children.
Just a casual observation by me along the shore, the worst of the worst is the shoreline north of the boat club,
Yeah.
relative to any other water, beaches, areas that I look at.
Maybons.
so I think the places that have, I mean, that shoreline has a lot of trash. That Juniper Road area, which Flip put us on a little while ago, is just a huge collector of everything coming down Goodwives.
And the bridge at Wings End is pretty bad.
Yeah. And then the junior sailing area seems to be the most popular drinking area for teenagers, and there are more White Claw cans than you could pick up in a lifetime.
So that's always useful.
Yeah. So we'll hit all the hot spots.
Any other business anyone wants to bring up?
No, but I'll volunteer to take this thing that we've
Take part
just
of it.
recently been talking about and separate it into today versus longer term, and I'll circulate it around, and I guess the collector point should be you, Julie, whenever, after it's gone through a couple of us before.
I need
You.
to build, because I'm gonna be traveling in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, Bill.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
Because that would be really helpful to
Yeah.
get the Great Island Committee to really focus on, like, what do we really need to decide? Chop, chop.
Well, I agree.
Next meeting is May 15th. Flip, you're acting clerk next meeting.
Okay.
And if you can't attend, then find a volunteer to take over.
We just watched it back at 79.
Who was acting clerk today?
Bill Cavers.
Well,
Dave,
Bill was
and Dave
supposed to-
Devers. But it
It's
is
gonna be a
on,
short note.
Channel 79 is an invaluable resource.
Yeah.
You could just flip to that and get it.
Yeah.
recorded. So.
That's how we do our minutes for the commission.
Bill,
We
there is
get
like
TV.
like
We
you're
don't
supposed to
have
get the
cable
minute,
TV.
a draft minute
don't need
in within 7 days. They've been reprimanded already this year. Yes. It's not final proof, but yeah.
May 11th was the date I had on the calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Does that work?
well, it works from a tide standpoint. It was better than whatever your earlier date was.
Okay. You want to move it?
Thank you.
I don't want to move it. I've got a funeral to go to.
Oh, okay,
That just came up between the last time.
okay.
You wanna adjourn the meeting?
Yeah, one other item, is we were worried about the placards on these,
Oh, kayaks.
on the kayak racks because of the cold weather thing, and then we saw that incident that occurred up in Westport. I think Bill Cavers was gonna do that, so I don't know, I'll try to contact him to see if someone was gonna go around and make sure we still had them on there. It basically said, you know, beware of water temperatures and all that kind of.
I don't think we have any of those on the Norosi racks, because arrangements get rolled over in the storms.
Yeah.
They generally only last a year. They get beat up
Beat up,
pretty good.
Who did that last year?
yeah. Built it.
I think Bill did it.
Yeah,
He
I've done it
laminated
a couple times with him too.
Oh, you have? Okay.
It's fairly easy, I'm happy to help with that. I think he has the
You wanna
file.
contact Bill and just see
He
if
has
you
the
guys
file.
can work that out?
Sure.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, I have nothing else.
Nothing else? Anybody else? A motion to adjourn?
So moved.
You can go through guys, there's a website, you can put in the TV7, but yeah, you just need to be on the internet.